It's all performance. So we want to maximize, we want to get every penny for these clients. And if we charge them 50%, they'd still have more than they did without us. So at 10%, you have nothing to lose.
Welcome to Truly Passive Income. I'm Neil Henderson.
And I'm Clint Harris. And today we have Andy Gurczak with us. Andy's the founder of All City Adjusting. He immigrated to the U.S. from Poland at the age of 9, found his calling in public adjusting after years in construction, specifically in fire restoration. I want to talk more about that. Andy spent over a decade helping thousands maximize their insurance claims, ensuring that they receive what they truly deserve when they have an incident. So, Andy, great to have you with us today. How are you?
Neil, Clint, thank you so much. Thanks for having me. I'm great. It's good to be on your show.
Excellent. Yeah, thank you for coming on. We were talking before we started recording. We talk about real estate a lot because we've kind of pigeonholed ourselves. That's what we do. That's how we operate. And a lot of investing, specifically, we talk about the offensive side of things. How are you deploying your capital? How are you finding the right investors? And one thing that we haven't talked a lot about is protection and playing defense and making sure that that the assets that you built up, that you've got a plan in place. And this kind of reminds me of a book that I constantly bring up, which is Dan Sullivan's book, Who Not How. And it feels to me like the challenge is, there you go. Look at that.
Got it on my bookshelf.
How do I make sure that my properties, right there on the bookshelf. Look at that for those watching on YouTube. Yep. How do I make sure that my properties are adjusted correctly? And I have a feeling the conversation that we're about to have is that I don't have to know that. I just have to know who knows how to make sure that they're adjusted correctly. So tell us a little bit about yourself, about your background and how you got started, and we'll go from there.
Yeah. So, like you said, I was restoration, was in construction, met a PA that was in the industry for 40 years who took me under, and taught me the entire industry. There's no book. There's some classes now for PAs, for public adjusting. But at that time, I don't remember any classes or anything. So he taught me everything, 40 years of everything he learned. I took within 3 years, then started All City Adjusting. And then we kind of went nationwide. We targeted our clients of mostly our investors, landlords, business owners. So as their portfolios grew, we kind of grew with them. So, they bought a property here, they bought another property out of state. So we just kind of kept expanding to different states. Now we cover about 40 states. We also invest in real estate with my wife. So I know that aspect on the offensive side all of the time. Like all our money, anything we save up, we put away, goes into investing in real estate. So we play that side. And again, now knowing the claims department, knowing that, it's easy for us when we do have a claim and all that. But for someone that doesn't, that's what we're going to get into, I guess.
So let's start at the bare bones basic. Explain to us what public adjusting is, who you're an advocate for, and your thought process and who you're protecting.
Yeah. So we are licensed by the states to represent only the insured. So advocate for the insured, the policy holder. We're the middle guy. So we take over the claim for them. We're able to negotiate it. We're able to negotiate, handle all their properties, discuss policy language, basically everything on their behalf. The only thing where we stop, we can't litigate. So we cannot go to litigation. It would have to go to an attorney. But most of the claims we take on, 95%, we handle in-house and we get them settled. About 5% will then end up going to litigation if like the insurance company is really pushing back or something's being handled really poorly, then we'll have to go to an attorney.
All right. So you, and just to clarify, you're there for the insured, the policyholder. And oftentimes, the dirty secret with insurance companies is usually they're always going to say no. That's the way they make money is they say no. And you're there to say, no, listen, the policy says this is what you would pay out. This is what's happened. And you're advocating for the policyholder to get what they've paid for, correct?
That's 100% accurate. That's the best way you could put it, right? A lot of people don't understand. They think, insurance, they're on my side. They're going to help me out. People don't look at it as like they're in business to make money. Obviously, they've become billion-dollar companies, Allstate and all these guys, not by, collecting more premiums. It's not like they have that many more offices or more clients. It's because their claims are getting underpaid. So they have reserves for claims and they underpay them. You don't understand there's incentives for staying under an amount of a claim. Where we come in is, again, we're trying to maximize the claim on each of their, and again, you have different coverages, coverage A, coverage B, trying to maximize everything we can. per the policy terms, right? Because it's what's in the policies where we can go after.
So talk to me about the value of coming from a construction background. Like you specifically were working in fire restoration, or at least a part of. That's what I know from your bio. So I'm sure that you were in a situation where you saw the damage, you saw what the insurance company was paying. I'm sure at some point there was a disparity there, and you realized, oh man, somebody's got to advocate for this. Somebody's got to fight for this. What was that like? And then how did you recognize the opportunity and go in that direction from swinging a hammer or whatever you were doing, and recognize an opportunity that you could be an advocate?
Yeah, and that whole life summary there of me at the beginning, there's a lot more. I did a lot of exterior work. I started with roofing, siding, went to do interior work, had my own construction company. Then I was doing fire restoration. So I was tied into it. So having that for me, that's huge, right? Because now I'm negotiating when we're talking about property damage, right? We're just talking about coverage A or the physical property. I discuss it from a term of I know exactly what it takes to put this property back to pre-loss condition because I did all the work. I know exactly what needs to be done. I know building codes. Whereas 99% of the adjusters coming from the insurance side have no clue. They've never done any of the work, right? They were given a laptop and some guidelines. So that's huge. And everyone in our team has some kind of insurance and some kind of construction knowledge. Saying that, yes. So when I was in fire restoration and we were doing projects, I remember when that PA that mentored me showed up in the job site. And I asked, I was working for someone back then. I asked my boss who that is. He's like, oh, he's the one that helped them get all this money, help them get this, situated this. And I was like, that's interesting. I kind of want to get into, learn what he's doing, not just the construction. So then I was able to get his number, get under him, and learn the aspect of just adjusting. And all my focus just went that way. I really enjoyed helping people, enjoyed that a lot more than I did the construction aspect.
So I want to just highlight something here that, there's a similarity between your story and what we do with Neil and I are general partners with a group called Nomad Capital. And we buy old vacant big box retail buildings and we convert them to storage. And right now, because of the capital market situation, the interest rates, there are a lot of operators sitting on the sidelines, not operating, just kind of sitting and waiting things out. And the reason that hasn't been the case for us and we're still moving ahead is because our partners are father and son team of Eric and Levi Hemingway and their general contractor. When you are a GC and when you have that knowledge and you have what we call vertical integration, top to bottom, from you can look at a project, you know what the cost is going to be, you can get in, you can control that cost in a market where you don't have to pay retail for a lot of things. Now, in your situation, it's the opposite. You know what the cost is for the construction and you're using that to leverage the insurance companies, and they're pencil pushers, right? And they're used to pushing back against pencil pushers, and that's not you, right? You've got a construction background. It's really hard for them to come to you and argue when you're like, look, I used to do the roofing. I used to do the siding. I used to do the fire restoration. I think there's a ton of value there. And it's really interesting that you built off of that platform and it puts you in a situation where you're like, you have an authority on this. It's really hard for them to argue. And then you didn't just use your experience, you used a relationship that you got. And it's honestly, I've seen a couple of your bios now. And you can't go anywhere without hearing about Herb Johnson, first African-American public adjuster in Illinois, who was your mentor and gave you that, that 30 years of experience. So how did that shape your career? What are some of the key lessons that he gave you that really launched you?
He was old school and I have an old soul. So he was 70 when he got with me, when we got together. He was kind of on his way out and, I got an old soul. So we worked out. Like he does everything old school. When he went and met with adjusters on site, his whole thing was settled with them on site. He negotiated on site. He wasn't this new school, let's just send emails and text messages, right? No, he wanted to meet on site, shake hands, talk, let's go sit down. He used to call, let's go break some bread with the adjuster, right? Hey, there was something about him and the way he handled it and how in a cool manner that I took. There was bad stuff too that I, again, when you have a mentor, right, there's good and bad, I think. And you have to pick out what you want to incorporate into your life and how you handle claims or your business, wherever mentor you have in industry, and what bad, this stuff I don't want to do. I don't want to do it this way. But all that knowledge he gave me that you could write it. There's no books. There's nothing on it. It was priceless to this day. And going back to that knowledge you're talking about in construction. Now, we had a claim last year for brother Elijah. There's videos of him actually on our YouTube channel. He had a fire here not far from our office. He called us. He got offered $800,000. This claim ended up settling for $3 million. So it's $2.2 million increase in his claim settlement. But when we met, they sent the initial adjuster who gave him that first estimate. Then we came in, wrote our estimate. We sent it in, sent them all the paperwork. So the insurance company sent in, they said a church specialist. So he came out, the gentleman. And I remember meeting him, and I'm thinking, shoot, I'm kind of, I'm inexperienced compared to this guy, because he's like, I've been building churches, I've been doing this. I'm like, shoot, I don't have, I've built, but never built, churches or anything. But as soon as we started walking and discussing the claim, and I started pointing out stuff, I'm like, this guy knows as much as me, if not maybe less. So that construction, and that was their guy, hey, this guy's built churches, he's got everything. So that knowledge, and then like I said, the rest of our team, we go up against any insurance company, we're always on the winning side.
Now, Andy, do you guys do any sort of pre-claim consulting for people to make sure that they're properly insured?
Always. So if they're properly, regarding insured, if they're insured properly, we do free evaluations all the time. So our investors, landlords, our clients that we've been with us for a long time, when they buy new properties, they'll send us their policies, and then we'll make sure that everything looks good. So we'll look through the policy, we'll look through the coverages, make sure there's no extra endorsements they need, or maybe there's some exclusions that they have that they shouldn't have. So we do that free cost policy evaluations all the time.
Well, I have to speaking from a property owner, I feel like a babe in the woods most of the time when it comes to property insurance. I just, you talk to an insurance salesperson, they tell you, okay, this is the policy you need, and I may adjust the premium up or down, whatever. I really have no idea. So what you're saying is somebody might benefit from reaching out to you guys when they get a new policy and just say, hey, here, I'm going to look at your property, I'm going to look at the policy and see whether or not you're fully covered, whether or not you should add or subtract anything.
100%. And even if they have existing policies, people will contact us and say, can you review, these are the properties we have. Here's the coverages policies. Can you guys look it over? And we'll spend time looking over and making sure there's no gaps.
Well, because it's always, the incentive structure for the salesperson is to always just
100%
maximize the policy, maximize the premium. And sometimes they're, not to say that they're being crooked, but their incentive structure is different from perhaps yours. So my next question is, how are you guys compensated in something like that?
Yeah. So going back to what you just said though, with those agents, I think there's lack of knowledge with agents. I think a lot of them don't even know their own policies. I mean, think about State Farm, right? You purchase a policy and all of a sudden they send you a deck page. It's 3 pages. But when you request the full policy, they don't send you a full policy, right? It takes weeks to get the full policies. They're selling all these coverages and these policies without actually seeing the policy or reading it or knowing what's in it. Kind of scary, right? But again, ultimately, they're just a salesperson. They're just trying to get you insurance. That's it. They're not worried about the claims, that department. They're just worried about the sales and collecting premiums. Going back to us, we get compensated on a percentage. So it's contingency, and our fee starts at 10%, and then it goes up from there. If we get involved in a claim a little bit later, it might be a little bit more based on anything extra we get, like an above contract. If we're starting from beginning, it's usually 10%. And then for when it's large claims, we have a deal with some of our investors where our fee actually goes down. As the claim goes up, our fee structure goes down. So we accommodate pretty well to all our clients. So we don't get paid till the end. So once we finish the claim, once the claim is settled, you get paid. That's when we get paid.
So yeah, assuming that once a payment comes out, that's when you guys are getting paid, right? So it's honestly performance based. Yes, there's a policy there, but it's basically performance based, and you're an advocate for the claim holder because that ultimately determines what your compensation is as well, but you're fighting for them to get that. Is there any kind of data out there as to how much more you typically get in a settlement when you're using an adjuster that knows what they're doing versus just filing the paperwork and hoping they say yes or something like that?
Yeah, I think the average, I forgot there's a graph somewhere. I think the average with the public adjuster that more you're getting is 74%. So we
more.
charge 10%.
There you go.
So if we charge our clients,
Right.
I look at it all the time. When we look at our claims, whether we were involved right from the beginning, because most clients, when they find us, when it's you, right, they usually have a claim, and it's a month, 2 months after is when they're starting to see all the BS, and that's when they reach out to us. But then going forward, they'll always call us right as soon as something happens. Say, hey, Andy, we had this happen. Can we file a claim? Can you look this over? So it's a little bit different. But again, it's all performance. So yeah, we want to maximize. We want to get every penny for these clients. And if we charge them 50%, they'd still have more than they did without us. So at 10%,
Yeah, way more.
You have nothing to lose. And here's the thing now, right? It's not just the money, it's how much quicker the claim gets settled, right? Your claim doesn't get delayed and it doesn't get denied, because now claims are getting denied left and right, right? They're putting people under oath. They're they're literally sending out as many third-party vendors. Possible. Engineers, investigators. It's getting crazy, especially on a large loss, right? Anything that could prevent from paying out the claim.
So what's the smallest claim that you guys will work on? Hold on, let me back up for a sec. I'm going to be a little bit selfish here. So I've got a duplex, 3 quadplexes at the beach on the island where we live, some of them in a flood zone, some of them not. I've taken all those with bad long-term tenants and I've converted those into 14 Airbnb units. I started a property management company that manages those 14 listings and about another 75. Some of those listings in a flood zone, some of them not. And when some of those people are coming to us, my wife is a real estate agent. She's got 5 properties under contract right now. And people are like, well, who do we use for this? Who do we use for that? So selfishly, I'm curious to know, what's the smallest size claim that you're working on? Is it like single family homes? Are you typically doing portfolios or multifamily? And then if I come to you and I'm like, hey, here's this property, here's the challenges about where it is. It's 3 units, it's 4 units, and it's in the VE flood zone or the AE flood zone, or it's on this island. Can you give guidance as to what type of policy we should be asking for and make recommendations for that?
Yeah. So regarding the first one, regarding the claim size. So we like to stick to 100,000 and up. Kind of, most of the claims we'll handle is fire claims. We'll do water claims. When it comes to hurricane, like hail, wind, storm damage, exteriors on commercial properties, those we make sure it's commercial. Anything residential, we don't really touch. But let's say like you guys are investors, you guys have a bunch of properties. You call and say, hey, we have this loss. Can you look at it? We'll take smaller claims because you're part of our long-term clients. You're calling us for everything. So we'll take small claims. We'll look into all the claims, right? Because we can handle that. For if a homeowner calls and said, hey, we had a pipe break in the basement, we'll recommend someone if we know someone in the area. Otherwise, we have to pass on. Because again, we're trying to, as we're growing, this is a business. Ultimately, we want to focus to what we're good at and not, spread ourselves short and then do claims that, we don't, that's not our specialty. Your second question was regarding if you can recommend us to review policies. Or
if you can give guidance as to this type of, and again, it sounds like residential is kind of not your wheelhouse, but we do commercial development as well. So if we kind of show you hey, here's the warts on this property, here's the potential risk. This is a Kmart next to a river in an AE flood zone or whatever. Can you make recommendations as to what we could look for there?
100%. If you send me a policy, even a single family, hey, we're looking to buy this single family. You have a client that's looking to buy a single family. We can take a look at it. I can look at the age of the building. I can look at I can pretty much from pictures and data could good estimation on what coverages you're going to need and what you don't need when it comes to insurance. Now, construction wise, I have my construction on, so I can that's just personal advice. But when it comes to our properties, I don't need inspectors. I don't need I do my own inspections. I look at all that stuff. So to me, I guess when I'm looking at policies, I look at clients' homes. I can kind of take a look and say you need this insurance. You're going to need this coverage. And I could say, hey, your roof's 20 years old. They might not insure you or they might drop you. If you do have a roofing claim, you're going to have a hard time because they're going to say your roof's old. Just because of knowledge, construction, we know all the basics.
So what I don't think I got this question answered, which was, what do you charge for the consulting, the pre-policy
Nothing.
consulting?
That's free.
Nothing?
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
Free.
That's free. That's why, again, if you send us your whole portfolio, we'll look over we spend a week, it's fine. If something ever happens, again, not always, but I'm guessing most of the time we'll get the call and still look at the claim. So why wouldn't we? And again, it's just creating that relationship. And, sometimes we learn stuff, right? We look at policies, we'll learn stuff and know in the future, okay, when we have this insurance, there's this claim, that policy that has this, exclusion. Make sure we're aware of it.
Yeah, this is very much a relationship business. Like, this is something, I'm buying properties for 20 years and I've got the adjuster that I'm using across that portfolio. And listen, $100,000 for a claim, I don't think that's as big as it sounds. Like, the number sounds big, but $100,000 claim is not that big, especially in terms of commercial properties. Like, we've got our most recent self-storage conversion that we did. We got a dozen self-storage facilities in our portfolio now at Nomad, and the last one came in right now at certificate of occupancy appraised for $11.3 million. At stabilization, it's about 13.5. You have a leak in there, or a little bit of flooding or a little bit of wind damage on that adds up very, very quickly. And having somebody else take the other thing is that you mentioned earlier is that the time that it takes, right? Time is money, especially in commercial real estate. So being able to act quickly on that is worth a lot just by itself in terms of the timeline. Let's zoom out for a second. Now that I've got you here, let me ask you about what do you think? Where do you think insurance is headed over the next decade? Like, everybody's talking about global warming, about rising sea levels, about across Florida. We're typically looking across North and South Carolina, Tennessee, Virginia, Georgia. And part of that is just because the insurance costs in Florida are ridiculous in some of the markets that we look at. So is there any like red herring that you're seeing out there in terms of are areas going to not be able to get coverage, or is coverage going to drop or lapse, or where do you think things are headed for the industry as a whole?
Oof, this question in the last year, I get more often. This question was never asked, and now I feel like I get it asked pretty often. Knowing that the carriers are pulling out of different states with regulations, something's going to have to change in terms of maybe states easing up on the regulations so the insurance companies stay. Soon, if at this rate, soon everyone's going to be out of California. Who's going to insure them? So I don't know if there's going to be new carriers that come into play, maybe more online based to save money. I'm curious to see myself. I know the claims system, that's getting more difficult, and it's just getting harder to get out money from claims paid. That we could see on our end. Like, if a homeowner is trying to handle, or a business owner is trying to handle a claim on their own, like, God bless you. Because I know what people are going through. We see it every day and how we handle claims. So if you're doing it on your own, good luck. So that aspect, the claims, that's getting more difficult to get money out. With premiums, premiums have doubled, I think, for everything. When I look at our own properties, it's the premiums have gone up, and it's getting harder to even get coverage. There's a property we couldn't even get coverage on. I don't know how many carriers we shopped at. We couldn't get it was hard to get coverage.
Wow. Yeah. Well, listen, I think that times like this, it's all the more important to make sure that as those claims get harder and harder, it becomes more imperative to have somebody that knows how to navigate.
Well, I want to start wrapping it up, but I've got a question I wanted to get answered before we let you go. You've highlighted the importance of having a good insurance agent. Can you share a story where a client's inadequate coverage led to a significant challenge, and how are you able to help them?
Yeah, there's one, I think it was a 16 unit that burnt down. It was an ACV only policy. I don't want to get into much details because we'll go down a rabbit hole, but ACV is actual cash value. So you're only getting the initial value. You can't recover that depreciation. So let's say this 16 unit that burnt down, the adjuster wrote that up. I think the limit of that bill, the limit of the insurance coverage was $500,000. Correct. And so I think, I think it's 500. He rolled his estimate like 505 and then depreciated like half the building because it's an older building. So the insured only got a payout of like 300. So when we looked at that, first of all, the agent, he should have had an RCV policy, the full replacement cost, right? It was only a couple dollars more. I know the insurance company, I know their premiums, I know how much it would have cost them, only a couple dollars more. So that was just bad advice. Whoever sold them that. But when we got involved, the adjuster, I remember a call, reached out to us and said, hey, why did he hire you? I already paid limits. Oh, well, you paid limits, but he's got an ACV policy. You're only giving him half the money. And it looks like you stopped writing. When you got the limits, you stopped writing your estimate. You didn't do a full estimate. When we got involved, we ended up writing that for like $850. So even after this huge depreciation, the insured got policy limits of $500. He had other endorsements. It ended up being like a $600,000 claim.
Wow.
Yep. And you're taking home 10% of that, and he's walking away with more than $500,000 than what he got otherwise.
For like $100,000. It was the best thing that could have happened. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Wow.
Well, what a good feeling. That's when you're really helping people, and when they're in a tough spot, when people are really down and something has really gone wrong, it's not every day you run into somebody like that, or it might be for you, but it's not for me. And it's important, I think, to try to remember that as an opportunity to step in when people aren't always that vulnerable. Be able to step in when people really need that help. I'm sure that's a good feeling. So, listen,
we just had a fire actually that literally we just got and paid a ton of money, and they're just to see the look on people's faces, like, man, we've never had this much money. We've never been able to put in it. We've always been like behind on everything. So it is a great feeling on the claims this side that we see.
Yeah, I love that. Well, Andy Gurczak, founder of All City Adjusting, thank you for your time today. This is the first time we've been able to have this conversation. I certainly, I've learned some things today. I don't see a reason why someone would not use a knowledgeable adjuster, especially when you have a claim coming. So thank you for sharing your knowledge with us. If any of the listeners want to hear more about you or find out how to connect with you or more about All City Adjusting, what would be the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, they can check us out at allcityadjusting.com. For your listeners, I'll leave them with my cell phone number. If any of your listeners wants to call and discuss policy or discuss claims, look at policy language, my direct line is 708-655-4186. They can literally text me or call me anytime.
That sounds great. Thank you, Andy. We really appreciate your time, man. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Andy.
Neil, Clint, thank you guys.
Thank you so much for listening and watching the Truly Passive Income podcast. If you liked the show, if you think it would be useful for someone else, the greatest compliment that you could give us would be to share the episode, leave a comment down below, or leave us an honest review. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to let us know down below. And remember, with truly passive income comes freedom of time, place, and the freedom to pursue your higher purpose.